Hey everyone, it's Joseph again, and I go by Audi Snapper on the forums. This is my second video, and it's kind of a major update for this particular trophy truck build. Today I thought I'd share with you kind of the overall build again in a little bit more detail. I'll focus on a few things. The first one being the front brakes, which I've got a lot of questions on, both on Instagram and YouTube. So I thought I'd give a quick overview on that. Also, the suspension was kind of a mystery to some people, and so I'm going to try to clear that up. So I removed the black panels, as you can see, and on this side of the truck anyway, that gives you a little bit better idea. But the major update is that to some of you, this might be a little disappointing, but I've converted from Nitro to electric. It was kind of a tough decision. I held out as long as I could, but in the end, backyard bashing, with my daughter and her electric vehicles was a little bit challenging, with the noise and the fluids and the extra stuff that we had to take with us in order to make this Nitro truck run. It just wasn't the same. And as much as I hated to do it, I swapped over to electric, and I haven't looked back, unfortunately. So I've had a really good time. It was a pretty easy transition. I'm still running the same transmissions, both front and rear, although the front's not hooked up at this time. I'm enjoying it. I'm running a Castle Creations motor, and same two-speed setup and so forth. So anyway, I have a little different camera setup today, so I'm going to be kind of clipping between scenes so that I can share with you some of the different details as I zoom in and so forth. But just overall, so this is the truck, what it looks like without the body panels on it. I have a lot of photos on my build thread, so if you're interested in more detail on the actual cage itself, you can get a better idea by checking out the photos. But as you may or not be able to see, the cage left in its raw form is now starting to rust up a little bit. So probably in the next month or so, I'm going to have to strip it down, to the bare cage and put it back in the media blasting cabinet and knock all that back off and consider maybe powder coating or just leaving it raw and repeat. So anyway, I'm going to start from the back. I covered a lot of this in my first video, but this shows it in a little bit more detail. I've got my own custom sway bar link. In order to get the sway bar link to hook up with the Metal Concepts mounting bracket up here in the front, I had to put a little kink in the link, which it's probably not a great idea. I'm sure at some point that kink is going to turn into a bigger kink if it takes enough abuse, but so far I've been pretty lucky. One of the things I mentioned in my other build is I have these custom little bump stops, basically just 1/20th scale shocks, I believe. They work pretty well. I've since taken out the heavy spring, put a lighter spring in there, and added a little bit of rubber hose in there to kind of absorb some of the impact. Moving up forward a little bit, you can see I got my battery mounted in here. I haven't really quite figured out, if that's the best spot for it. I'm using some Axial Yeti cage element that I had left over in a bag. To kind of mount the battery for now. It's held up great over the last couple weeks and all the bashing that I've done. The shocks, I've mentioned it before, they are the Proline shocks and the HR shocks. So the HR shock is just a spring shock. It's got no oil in it. It only adds to the spring capacity for the rear. I'm running that 5-inch long Proline shock with a older gold Losi spring. We'll move forward a little bit. As you can see, I've got my ECS mounted here, or ESC, sorry, and still running the same setup in the the two-speed transmission, although I did pull out the second speed for now. It was starting to show a little bit of wear, so I pulled it out. You know, I wasn't using it that much anyways, so figured, you know, just stick with the single speed for now. Moving forward a little bit further, as you can see, you know, I've got these red reservoirs on the front shocks. They're just, you know, leftover reservoirs I had from a different shock setup. I created my own little mount on there. They're just for looks, obviously. I'm running the Proline shocks up front, so you know they don't really need that extra reservoir. It's just something that I did just for the aesthetics of it all. Alright, so here we are. We've got the front brake setup that I created. Here I've got the custom carrier that I had 3D printed. This particular 3D printing process is a little bit different than the one that's on here. The one that's on here is more of that traditional layered printing process. It doesn't look nearly as nice as this guy. I think they use some sort of laser and powder to create this particular style of plastic. It's, you know, it's all kind of science fiction to me, but you know, it looks really nice. I haven't really had a need to mount this one yet, since these are holding up just fine. I think I mentioned in my other video, one of the challenges that I found is I could not find a disc brake that had a 12mm hex, so that you know, it would be a floating disc brake, which is really kind of the key to this particular brake setup. These pads don't pinch from both sides. One is stationary and one pinches, so this brake pad, or this brake disc, needs to float. In order for it to float, I had to create a 1mm adapter to go over the 12mm hex to create, well, it's actually 1mm on both sides, so this is a 14mm hex over a 12mm hex, which is, you know, what we're used to for the 12 or 10 scale cars. I think I mentioned in my previous video as well that this is a brake pads from an 8th scale buggy. It's a center diff, and then everything else is custom. You know, the cable setup, the little arm that presses against the brake pads, the cable that reaches over to the servo and so forth. Everything else is custom, but really the only things that I'm using now from the 8th scale buggy is the screws that hold the brake pads in place, and the brake pads themselves. Everything else I've had to kind of design and create. So just to get a general idea, I mean, I'm gonna just press on my servo arm here, and you can see the functionality of the little arm here that presses on the disc. So back in here, you can see where the pivot point is, and as this is pulled up, it presses on the back brake disc, which then presses against the disc, which presses against the front brake pad, is what I meant to say, brake pad, not brake disc. So, and again, that happens on both sides, obviously, and I have some fine adjusting and coarse adjusting screws up here on the top, next to you know, where the two cables come together. So all in all, it's been working out pretty well. I think the only challenge that I've come across is that every once in a while I'll get some debris back behind the brake pad and the brake carrier. Not a big deal, it clears itself out over time, but you can tell that you know, especially when you're driving in the dirt, that one disc or one wheel would be dragging a little bit more than the other. The only other thing that I think I would probably change, if I had the opportunity, is that I redesigned the carrier so that this little arm could be longer. The more leverage you have, the stronger the brakes will be. Right now, the back brakes have so much more potential than the front brakes. The front brakes do add probably 50%, if not more, to the braking power of the two together. Because with just the rear brakes, I'd end up locking up the wheels and it would just slide on the dirt. So having the front brakes is a huge huge benefit, but I'd still like to add a little bit more capacity on the front. So it's something that I'll work out, but for now it's working pretty well. I'll give you guys a quick little demonstration with the radio on. Hopefully you can see that. So that's really all there is to it. So another thing I wanted to share with you guys, I had showed you last time, is these are my my plastic panels, and I had mentioned that they were one piece, and I thought it was important to sort of illustrate what they look like off the body or off the truck. So I had mentioned that I simply scored the lines with a blade, and then once the line was scored, I was able to just sort of crack it, and it's been, you know, fairly rigid. I haven't had any problems with some of the panels. I did have one of these little guys up front bust on me. Probably took a rock too hard, but for the most part these panels have been really well. You can actually see the rust on my little Nerf bar here. You know, something I'm going to have to media blast at some point. Here's the back one that I mentioned. So this one's a little bit more complex. It's got the cutout for the little bump stop. Plus I've added a little bit reinforcement for the body panel or the body mounts. Thought it was necessary. You know, this is going to take a hit, and so far, fingers crossed, it's held up pretty well. Actually, see a bunch of dirt in there that I need to probably get out, but it's been working out pretty well. I added some little scale buttons. You know, they're probably less than ideal looking, but the idea was to create the little Zeus tabs, as they're called, or the Zeus fasteners that you see on the 1-to-1 trophy trucks. One of the things that, because this was such a weak joint right here, I added a bunch of super glue, so it's holding up pretty well. But once it's on the truck, it's you know, it's pretty rigid once it's all screwed down, so it's not really going anywhere at that point. Everything's real easy to put on and off. I'm using these little tabs that I made. They're basically little brackets to hold 1/16 scale tubing or diameter tubing. But what I did is I drilled out the center of the tab, and I pressed in a lock nut. So you can actually see that it's, you know, those two pieces are pressed together, held it up pretty well. I painted it black, and that's how I hold everything on these things. So works out pretty well. That's about it for this particular video. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post. I appreciate everybody's comments and questions, and you know, feel free to keep sending them my way. Please, if you like the video or you don't like the video, you know, hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down. And if you want to see anything else, anything in more detail, feel free to send me a note, leave a comment, and I'll do my best to share with you what I've got going on here. I'm continually bashing on this thing. You can see that it's got, you know, plenty of dirt and rust, and it's, you know, it's taken quite a bit of beating. So I'm going to keep pushing it and keep finding the weak elements, and kind of upgrade as I go along. But so far the cage has been phenomenal. I see no evidence of any sort of fracturing or bending, or, well, I take that back. The bending is all happening in the front bumper. It's taken quite the abuse. But everything else has been holding up great. And you know, I think the weakest link at this point were the axles, but I've updated or upgraded to the HD axles from Metal Concepts. Mike has been great, and he makes a great product, so we just need to find the right thickness for these axles, because these trucks are heavy. So this particular truck I mentioned before is probably just over 12 pounds now. So, you know, it's, when it comes down hard. So anyway, thanks again, guys. Until my next video.